And now,
ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
Business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Dom Gocher.
how well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at preneurmedia.tv.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another fine episode of PreneurCast with me, Dom Goucher, and him, Pete Williams.
Howdy, howdy.
Hey, sounding wide awake, bright and bushy-tailed there, Mr. Williams?
Absolutely. Daylight savings has kicked in and been some slight changes to the time zones, obviously, but all very good and ready to kick on with another episode of PreneurCast.
Yeah, I'd like to say something about it being a crazy time of year with their clocks changing this, that, and the other, but really, it makes absolutely no difference to me whatsoever. I have so many people in so many different countries, it's just... It's always going to be crazy. Let's just live with it now.
The joys of living on the coast of Spain and being a global digital media producer.
Indeed.
The trials and tribulations.
Do you know what? I was actually interviewed. It was a point of interest recently that I was interviewed, and we'll talk about it when it comes out, but I was interviewed recently for another podcast.
Wow.
Because somebody was interested in the fact that I was, in fact, a digital nomad. Not so much for the media production side of things, but just for being somebody who does what I do, but in a little fishing village on the coast of Spain. So
very cool. I hadn't heard about that one. You're off dancing on other shows and leaving me here by myself. Two-timer.
I was going to tell you, as they say.
I found out like this.
Yeah, you see, it's not just you that gets called in to do interviews, it's me as well.
I'm very excited, very proud.
Yeah.
That's
I'll
awesome.
have a little rider under the show notes, available for weddings and bar mitzvahs. And podcast interviews.
Well, speaking
cool, so what have you been up to then?
I was going to say, speaking of pimping ourselves out in a weird kind of way, just been working a little bit over the last couple of months with the team at 1-800-Repairs and 1-800-Cleaners, which is a new startup here in Australia that's doing sort of lead generation stuff for people in the repairs and cleaning industry. Exciting new little business model, and they look like they're going to be doing some really cool stuff there. But as part of their, add-on bonuses support for their clients, we actually did a mini 7 levers course all around how to actually double the profit of your business if you're in this repair or cleaning and tradesman type industry. So that's been really cool working over that at the start of the year, and they're just about to launch that and get that sort of going full speed ahead. So very excited to sort of be helping those tradies and cleaners and repair shops people help grow their business, and I'm sure some of them are now coming across and listening to the podcast too. So if you've come from that little world, welcome to the show. From Dom and I, but yes, that's been really cool doing that sort of customized training just for that community. So if you are a tradesperson or a cleaner or something like that in Australia, definitely go and check out 1-800-Repairs and 1-800-Cleaning, because those guys are doing some very cool stuff and can be a great source of traffic and also somewhat opt-ins for you depending how your 7 levers funnel works. These guys are a great plug-in to help drive some pre-qualified traffic to your business, which is perfect.
Indeed. In fact, in the general 7 levers course, we talk about having pre-qualified traffic if you can get it. Not every industry has these sites available. So yeah, that's a great business model those guys have got. And yeah, we did enjoy just making a completely specific version of the 7 levels of business course just for them. So that was quite a nice little project to do there. We enjoyed that. So shout out to those guys, and yeah, welcome to anybody who's just joined us on the podcast. If you're new for whatever reason, welcome, and hopefully you'll stick with us. On the specifics idea, Pete.
Yeah.
I've got a little kind of a test for you again. Every now and then we do these episodes of if I was a this, that, or the other. We've done a few recently, and I've got one. I'm going to pull this one no warning, no planning. I'm going to pull this one completely left field you and see how we get on. Because people do this to us. When we talk about the 7 levers, we regularly get people come to us and say, "Hey, the 7 levers doesn't apply to everything. It doesn't apply to my business or whatever." And usually between us, we can come up with lots of different ideas. In fact, for the ways the 7 levers apply, and that's how this "If I Was a" series popped up. So I'm going to put you to the test.
Okay.
What about if I was, and no jokes, what about if I was a yoga teacher or a yoga instructor?
The first thing that pops into my mind is you in spandex, which is not good.
I really did hope you weren't going to go there. But it was. I do know you too well, and it was a false hope.
All right.
Oh well.
Cool.
So, what do you think? What ideas? Or it means do you need any more information, or do you think you can pop something out?
Well, I actually almost became a yoga instructor back at university. That's a bit of a strange, random topic. That when I first started racing triathlons, I used to do yoga once a week, just sort of build up the flexibility, and actually was going so often that I actually enrolled for a yoga teaching course one weekend. But then a race came up, so I canned the course and went and raced. But that's sort of a completely random, irrelevant point. Doesn't really help anybody out there listening. But let's work through the 7 levers as we usually do on these "If I Were" calls, and give hopefully people some seeds of ideas of how they should be going about growing their business, and whether they are a yoga studio or something completely different. The whole idea is start thinking through yourself. If you were a yoga studio, how would you try and grow these 7 levers and double the profit of the yoga studio? Because this is the whole idea: is you swipe and deploy both ways. You can look at other businesses and work out what you would do there. Can help seed those creative thoughts that you can then apply to your business. But hopefully, again, most importantly, before we dive down that sort of rabbit hole, is if you do have a business right now, and I'm assuming if you are listening to the PreneurCast show, you have a business. These 7 levers are so important that these are the only 7 things that you should really be focusing on when it comes to generating profit in your business. They're the 7 drivers of profit. So, if you're not habitually going through this, whether it's 1 week on one lever, the next week on the next, and continually rotating through that in a 7-week cycle, or you do it at a grander scale and you do it over a 7-month cycle, and if you've got an online-based business where you're selling information products online, then you could be doing this whole 7 levers thing on a week. Literally, it only takes a couple of hours to set up an AdWords campaign to drive traffic, or a Facebook campaign. You could be doing and implementing a different thing on each of these levers every week, so one day a week, and you could literally be putting some very powerful leverage systems in place to skyrocket the profits of a web-based business, because it's just all systemized and rinse and repeatable. It's not having to worry about staff turning up and learning the sales scripts and stuff like that. But let's get into it. Let's talk about what we'd do and how you would grow a yoga studio if that's what you were trying to mold these 7 levers for. So Traffic's the first one, and
right.
There's some default stuff, that everyone should be testing if they are like a quote unquote local business, and that I guess seems to be a kind of the hot word of the moment in this internet marketing space. That if you are a business that has a retail front, so to speak, and you service a local community, you are a local business. So things like AdWords. With a geographical target is definitely worth testing. You obviously know that most people to your studio are going to live within a 10-mile radius or a 5-kilometer radius or whatever it might be. So you can obviously do the AdWords campaign around that. Definitely Google Local for sure. The Google Maps stuff to actually show yourself on a map when people do search for yoga studio Santa Monica or yoga studio Fremantle, whatever it might be. You want to have your studio appear in that geographical region on the maps. That's really, really important. And make sure you, again, link that to your website and fill out all the details to sort of really enhance your listing there. They're 2 of the very much low-lying must-do fruit. I also think there's a lot of sort of associations and accreditations in that sort of yoga space, and a lot of sort of directories about health and wellness. So, the type of person who's going to go to yoga is going to be someone who, is interested in this whole sort of wellness space, for want of a better term. So, having your studio listed in as many of these online directories as possible, not sort of online SEO directories. So people who sort of understand SEO or the history of SEO, when you sort of hear online directories, you might sort of go thinking sort of, Yahoo directories and best of the web and stuff like that. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actual directories that people actually visit and look at. Mind Body Green, for example, is a great website that I do enjoy, US based though, about health and wellness, and they have a directory of services on there. So obviously if you're in that area, you could obviously list your studio on Mind Body Green's website to sort of get some traffic and some awareness that way. So that's the kind of stuff that I'd be doing for a very high level perspective around traffic generation for a yoga studio.
Cool. Now, I'm just going to use a little bit of insider knowledge here, which is that one of the things that not everybody knows about you, depending on where they met you or where they've come across you from, one of the things you're really, really, really good at is actually offline promotion and promoting the business through traditional means and offline means, because a lot of the stuff that people will come across, if ever anybody tries to do anything to promote their business now, they're being hammered and hammered and hammered to go online and do pay for advertising, go here, go here, go here, and yet there's so much opportunity still with the offline stuff. So is there any kind of really almost, somebody might say it might even be obvious, but is there anything really basic, really straightforward and offline that you might go to do the traffic? I know we're dwelling on traffic here, and I don't want to dwell on one out of all seven, but
there's plenty of stuff. I think, again, some pretty obvious stuff is like, sign right at the front of your studio, like actually say what it is, and that make an offer of, something that will get the opt-in, which we can talk about in a moment. But, sign right in the front of your little studio is important. I think also understanding your target market, and this is something that I was dealing with quite a lot last week with a couple of consulting clients, getting really clear on who the target markets are. What is that person and what do they do? Because, in this scenario as a yoga studio, there's in certain Lululemon and Laura Jane type, female demographic based, yoga studio, yoga pants, yoga clothing type attire. These retail stores are in the big malls. They often have notice boards. So you can actually go and put some flyers or some business cards or some promotional material on their notice board. So when people do go into, Lululemon to buy their yoga pants, they can actually, and they quite often do, stop and look at these notice boards to actually see what else is happening. And if you have a good enough offer and a good spin on your marketing and your lead gen, your opt-ins, then obviously you're going to be able to get people into the studio. I've seen letterbox drops work really well. I've seen them work exceptionally poorly as well. So you can do a letterbox drop within a region, but the problem with that is it's more of a scattergun approach. You're not targeting your exact target market. You're going to be hitting people who are in their 70s and 80s, as well as people who have a family and people who are overweight who have no interest in yoga and stuff like that. So you want to try and get targeted. So stuff like scattered letterbox drops don't work overly well. In an area where we used to live before we moved out to the burbs recently for when Eli was born and be closer to Fleur's family, the laundromat that we lived in. Now, we obviously lived in a sort of an inner city suburb here in Melbourne, in Elwood, and there was a laundromat because a lot of sort of people don't have laundries at home in sort of the area we live. Very nice, well-to-do area, but just for whatever reason, laundries are kind of still quite popular. And they had a huge notice board there as well, and there was quite regularly pins up notices for yoga studios and massage and all that sort of stuff. And because the demographic was sort of 20-something executive couples who that does appeal. The yoga sort of appeals to that sort of demographic. So reaching people when they're doing that and they're washing their yoga pants, for example, and they're sitting there looking around, is a perfect demographic. Have that sort of pull off notice pin board about some sort of offer and things like that as well.
Cool. Just to bridge us to the next lever, which is opt-ins, getting people to take that step from just like looking at stuff to actually doing something so you can reach them. One of the things I like in what you said there was to understand the market, understand your target audience, and then find out where they might be going. And your example was a clothing store, and another example, certainly, I think one that is another opportunity is, for example, the health food stores themselves.
Absolutely.
You identify these people as being interested in well-being. So a health food store is another place that you could look to advertise, but this really does bridge us to the opt-in, because what you put on your flyer is crucial, right?
Yeah. Well, something I'd also say too is, depending on sort of how you want to position your yoga studio, is going for places to get referrals. Now, to give you a bit of an example, back in the Athlete's Foot retail shoe days of my previous life, we aligned ourselves exceptionally well with doctors and orthopedics and podiatrists and that sort of stuff to get a lot of referrals into the store because of the training we do for our staff. And I didn't own the stores; I was quite high up in the management sort of stuff. But in that scenario, what we do is with training is all about pronation and control and the foot creation and the shoe creation. And so we actually were seen very much in our local areas where we had the stores as the educated shoe reseller. So obviously, if someone goes in to get some orthotics or is just needing some adjustment stuff done, they'd refer them to us to get shoes that would support what they've just done. So that was really quite important. That was a great referral system. So in yoga, yoga can be very rewarding, so to speak, from a health perspective. So align yourselves, as you said, with those sort of health food stores, but naturopaths, massage studios. I was going to use the word parlours, but I think that has a bit of a different connotation.
I wouldn't know what you mean.
Even doctor surgeries, if you sort of find the right doctors, advertising and promoting in those sort of areas is again a great way to actually start generating some of that traffic and referral-based traffic as well.
I like it. I really do. I mean, it could be you could segment what you do. With a doctor's surgery, you're not just looking for people. From the exercise point of view, you could look at it as a stress management thing, for example. And you could position it as an opportunity there. Yeah,
well, there's actually something that just blindly obvious to me, unfortunately, I just didn't see then, is actually there's a yoga studio here in Melbourne that actually aligns itself with our triathlon squad. And, they sponsor the triathlon squad, which generates, exposure and leads for them, which is another great way to align yourself with healthy people who sort of want to live that better lifestyle, quote unquote.
Excellent. Well, I definitely think we've dealt with the traffic aspect there. If you can, there's plenty of ideas there. Not just if you're a yoga studio, but if you're basically any kind of business, there's a huge bunch of tips there. So I think it's the later things that we're really going to add some value here. So can we get back to this, to what you put on the flyer to get that opt-in, to get people to take that first step? Yeah.
Well, I guess the beautiful thing is that in the same sort of pitch for trade exchanges that we've spoken about quite a lot on the show before, and I recommend every business check out trade exchanges in that episode we spoke about. But what is your additional cost for having another person in the class? This is the thing that people have to be doing: is what is your additional cost of dealing with and taking on another new client for the very first time? And for the vast majority of yoga studios, there is no additional cost. You have spare room for another person, another towel, another body in the back of the studio while you're doing your class that is already happening. So there's no direct cost associated with having another body. If you're doing, for example, let's say car repair, you're a mechanic. To obviously fix another car, you do have a direct cost. You have the wages directly somewhat associated with doing that car because that person can't do or fix another car at the same time. You have some oil, you do have some direct costs to fix that other car or service that other car. Whereas with a yoga studio, if you've got 20 people already paying for the class, you as the instructor don't have to do anything extra for that 21st person. They just sit there and go through the routine in the same scenario, like group personal training. So the benefit of that is that your cost for a free trial, or your cost to offer a free trial, is zero. There is no additional cost. So that is one of the best ways you can entice that opt-in, is the offer you make on those flyers, in all your marketing material to get that opt-in, is for someone to come and try a yoga class. In retail, we sort of talk about getting them to try on a pair of shoes and just experience the shoes in the store. In this scenario, we're actually getting them to actually experience the results. It's been quite termed as results in advance. So you're giving the person an experience and some level of results before, in advance of them having to spend or commit to anything at all. and that is a great way. Free trial of food in the supermarket has direct costs against it, whereas this doesn't. So to me, if you can figure out what your cost of a free trial or your cost of a new person experiencing your offering, and the lower it is, the more chance you can actually use that as your opt-in. And I think in this scenario, it is an absolute no-brainer is to get people to come in and do a free trial.
Like it. As you say, that is a great opportunity for anybody once they know what that cost of that free trial is to them. But in this particular instance, the actual cost, as you say, is pretty much, unless somebody can tell us different, zero. And so it's an ideal situation to go for that as an opt-in.
And you can do that. You can facilitate this free trial in a number of different ways. Obviously you can just have people come to any old class and just be that third wheel, or that 24th wheel, or that the next person in the class. That's an easy way to do the opt-ins, and they experience what the classes are like. Another way that I've seen work exceptionally well that has some direct costs against it is intro nights. So rather than letting people to come to any old class, you actually every week, every 2 weeks, once a month, depending on how you want to structure it, and how you want to market it and promote it, you have an info night or a free trial night. So on the first Monday of every month, or the every second Monday night from 6 to 7 is your free trial night. So everyone in that class are first timers with you. Now the benefit of that, or actually before I go to the benefit, the downside of that is obviously that is a direct cost. You have time of yours that has an opportunity cost against it because you're not getting any revenue against that time. It's not like it's just additional body in an existing class. It's all about newbies, which obviously isn't as cost effective. However, the benefit is the way you conduct the class, the language you use, the future pacing you talk about is all to entice people to actually commit and go to the next level and get that conversion. So this is sort of something that is an opt-in. You get people to come to that free class and use it as a conversion mechanism, a much stronger conversion mechanism than just being in an existing class. Because as I said, you can sort of future pace the whole lesson. Next time you come, next week we'll extend on this particular session, this particular move. This is the sort of stuff we do here, and you can maybe you do Bikram, you do normal yoga, you do stretching. So maybe you can have that class where you cover the 3 or 4 different types of yoga classes that you actually offer throughout the week. So everyone gets a bit of it. It's like that sampler. It's that taste test type scenario. Someone doesn't have to make a commitment saying, "Oh, I want to come and trial Bikram, or I want to do normal yoga, or I want to come to the stretching class, or whatever it might be." So that could be a great way to allow people to sample everything and push them into one sort of conversion and commitment type offering on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, I guess that really, whether you run a specific class or whether you just include them, maybe that comes down to the amount of traffic, the amount of new people that approach you, and whether it's worthwhile doing it. But I do like the point that if you can focus these people into an area, like a specific class, for example, then you can focus everything that you do on that next level, which is conversion. Once they've opted in, once they've chosen to take a sample class, which is the opt-in that we're after in this particular sequence, then the conversion is to get them to either come to the next class or to get them to pay some kind of membership, maybe a block booking or something. And so if you can focus yourself, focus everything you do on that group of people that you want to convert, that's great. But you said something there, and every time you talk about this one topic, I start scribbling notes because I'm trying to find the definitive kind of approach for this, and it's future pacing, because I'm fascinated by this concept, this conversion technique. You talk about it whenever we talk about 7 levers, we talk about conversion, and other areas as well as the 7 levers. You talk about future pacing. You gave some examples, but could you just kind of break that out? Now I'm going to say we're in the conversion lever now. So you're having a conversation with somebody, and or you're at the front of the class, whether it's a one-to-one or you're in a class situation, you're talking to people. So can you give an example or talk a little bit about this idea of future pacing your what you say?
Yeah, look, I think there's a few different definitions of it. So let me kind of, I guess, talk about it in the way I see it. To me, it's a mixture of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is I think where the term first really gained traction, mixed with what I consider like an influence factor from Cialdini, which is commitment and consistency. So the way I see it, and the way we sort of use it in our businesses and our sales staff, is it's all about, it's an assumptive conversion pattern, in that what you're doing, you're assuming that the outcome is going to happen, not trying to, convince the client or the prospect to make a choice. You're trying to convince them to be consistent with the conversation. Most sales people sort of go into a conversation and a conversion discussion around, putting all these arguments together about them making a decision now. So it's all about, today, like here's what the thing you need to do. And at the end of this conversation, you need to make a decision. So that's sort of where the person's thought process is all about, I've got to make a yes on a decision in 10 minutes. That's sort of the way the conversation is led. And not, consciously, you don't sort of say at the start of the meeting, okay, Bob, I've got 45 minutes to present to you and I need a yes answer at the end of it. Like, that's not what you do, of course. But that's sort of the traditional sales meeting kind of agenda. Whereas with future pacing, you're kind of ignoring the decision-making process, making the assumption that of course they're going to stay around and do what you need them to do, and you're talking them through that, what it's going to be like. So things like, rather than saying, if you decide to commit to us tonight, and at the end of today's session we're going to talk about different offers of how we can actually help you with your yoga and your weight loss through yoga, whatever it might be. You're saying, okay, so next week when you come, we're going to be doing this, and then in 3 weeks' time, this is going to be the result you're going to get. And it's just, you make the assumption that it's going to go and happen. In the phone system game, it's not about saying, this is the phone system, do you want to buy it or not? It's like, okay, so, what's your timing? When do you want it installed? Okay, next Thursday. So if you want to install next Thursday, that means we should probably book in for Tuesday to do a data collection so our technicians can come out, understand how the system needs to work and be programmed, so that way on Friday it can be done. How does that sound? So you kind of just, you're assuming it's going to happen, and you're working backwards from this assumption of what the process will be, how it will actually happen. And it's a different sort of way to actually look at and communicate and frame in the context. It all comes down to, I guess, that act of framing and context, which was, I guess, one of the biggest themes for the first 20 or 30 episodes of the podcast, is it was all about framing and context. And that is a important thing. And I think that is how you frame something, or the context you give it, is quite often what actually results on the other side. So if you frame it as if it's going to happen, it's an assumptive, you're just future pacing it like it's just going to happen in the future. There's no questions around that. There's no decision to be made. That changes the context of the conversation and obviously the outcome as well.
Now, I really don't want to massively oversimplify this, because I think it's a really powerful technique. But what I get, the common thread through what you were saying there, and also from what I've picked up from our other conversations, it can be as simple and as subtle as changing the way you talk from saying things like, if you sign up, to when you sign up.
Yep.
Yeah? It can really be that simple. Just talking to people, as you say.
Well, honestly, I wouldn't even say when you sign up necessarily. I would be more like, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
Because when you sign up, still signing I'm very, very particular around this, but signing up as a word, is still a decision, and it's still an action that needs to actually be decided upon. I think that's probably better. Mm-hmm. Like, signing up is an action that needs to be decided upon. Whereas, we're going to come out next Thursday afternoon and get started, or I'll see you next Friday for the class. That is just, there's no decision to be made. It's just, that's what's going to happen.
So it's even stepping over that when and into the, as you say, the assumption that they've already decided that they're going to do it, and even talking as if they have already done it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, cool. Yeah. All right. Cool. So, our next lever after conversions
is items per sale. Now, this is an interesting one, because obviously, with a yoga studio, obviously what you're selling is access to a class generally. And a lot of people, I guess, what other items can you sell someone when you're offering them a service? Well, I know plenty of yoga studios and massage services where they actually have like a little retail area where you can sell, BPA free drink bottles. You can sell yoga mats, obviously and clearly, exercise bands, Even to the point where you could sort of start doing a couple of wellness products, get some particular vitamins or some sort of holistic green, like a Vital Greens or an Athletic Greens type product that you can buy a few and have them available to sort of complement the core business. And I think that's something that can work really well for a yoga studio. Is people come in and they get their mental stimulation or mental sort of cleansing through the yoga and the stretching, and they walk out as well every week with something off the shelf like a Vital Greens or some sort of supplement type thing that can help them nourish their cells as well. And I think that's an easy sort of items per sale type step is get people to buy those sort of complementary things. Maybe you can create your own info products. You could easily create a meditation CD. Find some royalty free music tracks that work really well with meditation, and then just voice your coaching over it. Because one of the things we used to do at the end of every yoga session was like a 10-minute meditation at the end of it. So we do 50 minutes or so of yoga poses and the downward dog and various things. Then we do a 10-minute meditation session where she would guide the session, put the music on, and then kind of guide us through the thought process and maybe the sayings that we'd sort of go through and things like that. Well, they could easily pre-record it and have a series of audio CDs on meditation that you can obviously sell and have people say, okay, Monday's your yoga class, but don't forget to meditate on Thursday. Here's a CD for $10, and get those sort of additional people buying those type of items to support them at home beyond the in-house, in-class yoga.
Love it. You left fielded me with that one. I thought you were going to stick to the really ordinary stuff, because you mentioned Lululemon earlier, and they are a really big kind of yoga sports outfit retail chain. Yeah. It's pretty popular in the US, and I thought you were going to stick to that. So no, that the audio CD. And how simple, really. Guided meditation. Yes, it's a skill. It's important. You need to know what you're doing and saying, but the implementation of it, as you say, royalty-free music for the background and your voice over the top, bang, done. Absolutely brilliant.
Literally,
brilliant.
They could call you up on Skype and give you a meditation lesson over Skype, record it, and there's the CD done.
Yep. Absolutely.
There you go, Don. Wow. There's a new business model for you. Meditation CD creation via
There you
Skype.
go, folks. Just drop me a line through preneurmedia.tv. I'll help you build your meditation CD to sell to your members of your yoga studio. No problem. That's ace. But yeah, because of the nature of the activity, I mean, I did a little bit of looking around yoga. My partner's into yoga, and it always seems there's always another thing to have. It's supposed to be this simple thing. You have your mat, and that's it. But no, apparently you have to have something to go on top of your mat, and then you need special gloves for the mat, and special socks for the mat, and blocks, and straps, and bag for your. Don't forget bag for your mat. Very important to have a bag for your mat.
Need your extra large drink bottle.
Of course, yeah. And so on. And so, there's all these opportunities to get these things in that even just sticking to the real core exercise process, even without adding all these extra kind of specialist items, the pure basics. I mean, if you've got a beginner and you have a particular mat that you recommend, if you can get a deal on getting that mat, if you can get a deal on supplying that mat to them, just put a small profit on selling that mat, then they walk in with nothing, they walk out with a mat. Yeah, you've increased your items per sale.
And that's sort of, my suggestion is I'd be going to places like Alibaba.com, which is a great online resource for accessing products wholesale from the manufacturers in across Asia. And I've done this in various smaller projects and stuff like that, where you can source mats directly from a manufacturer and buy 10 or 20 much cheaper than you can even from a local distributor, and then you retail that as an option as well. So if you're anyone doing any sort of retail stuff, check out Alibaba.com. It's a great resource to actually get products and services you can complement and supplement to increase this items per sale lever.
Brilliant. A one word of warning, anybody going on Alibaba.com, and that is, make sure that you set a time limit and then stop, because it's worse than eBay. It really is. You can get lost down that rabbit hole for weeks.
And if you're an entrepreneur and you like come up with new business ideas and product ideas, yeah, be very, very careful, because it's very easy to get excited by an idea of importing athletic sporting tape and selling it on barter card to sporting clubs.
That sounds like the voice of experience. Okay, let's jump on to the next lever.
Absolutely, average item value. Now, this is again, it's an easy one. Just up your prices by 10%. And this is the really cool thing with yoga in this particular example, is that quite often the demographic of someone who has yoga is generally, and I'm generalizing here, folks, so no emails, but generally is that sort of executive single or executive couple type scenario, so with good disposable income. So, being a premium yoga studio is actually a good thing. It's very kind of almost counterintuitive, because yoga is meant to be a bit free spirit, kind of do it on the beach scenario, but you could easily have premium yoga studios where you supply the mats hypothetically. So your the stuff you sell as complementary items is not yoga mats. You have that there, but you extra in terms of your qualifications. You've gone to that extra yogi school in the middle of Africa, or some weird area that you're extra qualified now at this sort of stuff. And seriously, like you could, if you are that sort of extra special yoga teacher, you can charge more. It's like anything in business, in any sort of industry. If you are the expert, the perceived expert, if you write articles for places like Mind Body Green and these sort of different magazines and outlets and publications, you are seen as an expert, and that way you can charge a price that is a customs associated, justified by that positioning. And it's really important to get your positioning right, because that actually not only can help your lead generation if you are doing marketing well, it also helps your positioning too, which then justifies this increase in pricing.
Absolutely. And every time we talk about this lever, that's the one thing that we talk about, is positioning, about building your authority in a space. And there's lots of really general tips for doing that. You covered most of the biggies, which are things like writing for other publications, making sure people are aware of your certifications, your experience, any specialist knowledge or courses that you've been on. You can even do it by association. You can invite people, more well-known or more qualified people to the yoga studio to give specialist courses.
Brilliant idea.
I learned from the master. But yeah, there's lots of opportunity, and again, it's all within the ethos of the yoga, the mindset of the yoga thing. But I like the point that you made. In our local area, the demographic of the yoga school isn't exactly young affluent couples. It's more slightly affluent retirees
as well. Absolutely.
We've got a lot of expats, but it's still that idea. There is a certain level of affluence involved in it, in certain areas. So there's no necessarily no stigma against making yourself a little bit higher rate, if it were, if it suits. But it has to be if it suits, obviously. But mixed in with all the other levers, maybe it doesn't matter so much. We are only after 10% on each lever, and some can make up for others if you don't feel that you really can put that price up. Usually there's scope to go up a little bit in all of them, and some of them there's lots of scope, lots of range. So you win some, you lose some, but it's only 10%, which really isn't that much on the average yoga lesson charge, really, is it?
No, not really. If you frame it right, it's it's $1 here or there.
Yeah, exactly. But it makes a huge difference with the cumulative effect of the 7 levers, as we always talk about. Just that 10% down the stack can end up with the double of the profits.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, cool. Shall we move on to the next lever?
Yeah, so the 6th lever is all about, transactions per period. So obviously, how many times do you get that person to come back to your class? Obviously, you want them coming once, you want them coming every single week. And a very obvious one, I think, is sort of but memberships. You get people to sort of either go on some sort of continuity program. You say, look, hey, it's $20 a lesson, hypothetically, or if you want to sign up for our membership, it's only $17 a lesson, and we bill your credit card for X amount every single month. So you pay $60 a month, and you get to come to 4 classes, so you get one for free, or some sort of variation of that math that works for you and your studio. But that gets people on that commitment and consistency, on that continuity revenue. So they are getting charged automatically every single month, just like a gym membership. So you're applying that gym membership philosophy to your yoga studio, and there's absolutely no reason why that does not work in so many studios around the world.
And that speaks back to that point you made earlier about the cost to you per client. You can offer, it's a great opportunity to offer that one class free if the cost to you of having one extra person in the class is bordering on zero.
Yep. And you can also do... Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it. That was kind of the wrap-up is that. So you have a build on that. Go on. Yeah,
things like, obviously, all the other sort of things we've spoken about before in 7 Levers related episodes here on the podcast is things like, maybe a 10-session card. So someone doesn't want to commit to, continuity where they're forced to get charged every single month on their credit card. They can buy buy 12 classes for the price of 10. So you get people to prepay for 10 classes or 12 classes, and however you want to do those numbers, and that way so you have pre-sold this consistency and increase these transactions or sessions per client by prepaying it. And you often find that this is the funny thing is the majority of people who actually buy that, like gift vouchers, won't use it and redeem the whole thing. But if you find that the average person only ever comes to 7 lessons, well, trying to charge them for buy 9 get 12 is you actually now have 2 additional sessions of revenue from that client that you wouldn't have otherwise got on average. So that kind of stuff's really important as well to look at doing these sort of numbers.
Just to recycle an idea, because we like to reuse and not overdo the effort. My point earlier about inviting a special instructor, even if you have somebody who's fully paid up for the year, paid for every possible lesson, if you invite a special guest, you've got an extra session you can sell one more ticket to.
Yep, it's a premium type scenario.
Yeah, so above and beyond the memberships you're already taking in, if you run special events, you've got another opportunity to just up the number of times that person transacts with you. Again, only by 10%.
An interesting thing that I've seen done exceptionally well, indirectly, is that some good family friends of Fleur and I, Sarah, who Fleur's best friend, who used to live with us, she and her mum go to Bali, I think, twice a year for a yoga weekend or a yoga retreat. So, Sarah doesn't go to yoga at all throughout the year. She goes twice a year to this retreat. Now, obviously, that's done in Bali. She flies into this place that does it, and that's all good and well for her. But, think about if you're running a yoga studio and you've got yoga devotees coming all the time, why can't you coordinate? Go to a local travel agent and say, hey, I want to coordinate this trip to this yoga retreat and sell it and promote it to our, members of the yoga studio. That we do like a group trip, twice a year. I want you to organise it, Mr. Travel Agent, because you get your commission. But I want to get some commission out of this myself. I want it sort of, a premium. And you could absolutely do that. There's plenty of travel agents these days, particularly with the issues of online. They would jump over you hand and fist to be able to coordinate that sort of trip. So you don't have any logistic management in this. You say to the travel agent, hey, I want to promote this to my community. I'll do the promotions through our newsletter and flyers and handouts and emails. They'll come to you to organise the trip. You coordinate all the logistics of it. And at the end of the day, if you get 20 people, I want $200 per head. So add $200 on to the cost to these people. So these people are now going to a yoga retreat overseas. It's an additional experience, kind of building on what you just spoke about then, Dom. But you don't have to do any coordination of it.
Brilliant. And they still see you as you get the added
huge kudos.
Kudos from that, because you organised it. Even though the travel agent organised it, people would perceive you as the organiser, the initiator, the person who had the idea, the person who facilitated it, And that will give you some amazing buy-in from your community. Plus, you're genuinely adding value. You know, if it's another experience, if it's a wider experience for the group, you're genuinely adding value, and you're just getting that little bit extra revenue. So that's a great idea, Pete. I like that.
Right, that's all. And this is the sort of stuff that I love working with businesses on. Is actually, you know, putting this sort of stuff in place. It's exciting to come up with an idea and go, okay, let's actually facilitate and frame this up. Because, you know, the easy way to frame that is that, hey, we're going to do this retreat, and to make it easy for you, members of my yoga studio, to save you having to do logistics yourself, I've actually found a local travel agent who's going to take all the headache and logistics away from you, so you can have your mind clear, ready for the trip. So you actually position it like the travel agent's doing them a favour.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just beautiful little great marketing story you can have there, and it's a great way to really build that bond with your clients, to get that commitment and consistency, but also it's that additional revenue source from that client in that, you know, calendar year. And you know, that sort of stuff is amazing.
Fantastic. Right. Well, we've done quite a lot on this topic. I thought I was going to stretch you on this, and you've just coasted it. So let's wrap this show up with the seventh level.
The margins,
yeah, I'm wrapping up with. I'm getting there. Let's wrap it up with margins.
There's margins to go. Well, this is the interesting thing, and this is, you know, margins in this sort of business, they are tougher. I'm going to be completely transparent. They're tougher to get because, you know, there's not a lot of input costs to facilitate a yoga class. It's not like, you know, manufacturing a product or retailing a product where you have, you know, costs and you're adding a markup to it. You know, with a general studio, all you've got is rent, you've got wages, and you may have a heating bill if you're doing Bikram yoga. So there's not a lot of cost against it. So, you know, things like going to Alibaba, as we spoke about, and buying these additional items, these on sale items that you're going to have in your little, you know, retail store, so to speak, from Alibaba rather than an Australian supplier or, you know, a local supplier or a branded supplier, is going to obviously help your margins. Increasing your price helps your margins. So, you know, margins in some instances and industries are a little bit harder to actually to pull. But again, you know, rather than having to do that level by 10%, you maybe can do some creative stuff with your rent and your leases and your costs with Alibaba, and maybe you got to get, you know, extra 5% in margins. Well, then you shuffle that extra bit around on the other levers, and you pull the other 6 levers by 11% rather than 10. You know, give or take the math. And you know, that's the beautiful thing, is that it doesn't have to be 10% on every lever. It just has to be that ideally 10% across it, and you can just, you know, juggle some up and down to sort of get that math working for you, so you do, you know, at least double the profit of your business and your little yoga studio very, very quickly. Sure.
I mean, you know, your margins are it's not just about flat out how much kind of profit there is in every person. As you say, you know, you've got your fixed costs to keep an eye on. You've also got the effectiveness of your time or your staff's time if you have people. You know, how many people are you teaching in a class, for example? You know, versus how much you pay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
I learn from the master. I told you I'd take notes. But yeah, you know, there are opportunities to improve the effectiveness of your business. That's the bigger message here in the margins lever is it's not just a flat out profit on the object you sell, the service or the goods or whatever you sell. But there's the whole effectiveness of your business. You know, maybe even you know, especially as it's yoga and it's a lifestyle thing, maybe it's not all about the money. Maybe it's about how effectively you're using your time, so that you can still maybe make the same amount of money but work less.
Absolutely.
There you go. And on that deep and thought-provoking idea, I think we should wrap up for this week.
Sounds good. That was a great session, great idea. I love, you know, doing this sort of, you know, on the fly thinking and planning around sort of the 7 levers, and obviously then the implementation comes after the fact, which again is a lot of fun working with clients to do that sort of stuff.
And I know you do, and you have yet again impressed me, sir, because I really did pull that one out of the bag on you live, as we do on the show, and you came up with some great ideas. We did it together. But yeah, the 7 levers is a great thing, and it's a great theory, and it's a great idea that we talk about, and we talk about it regularly. But the reality of it I think is the most rewarding thing for us, is to see people take these ideas and implement them, and to maybe even work with them as we've done in the past in our masterminds, and to actually see these improvements happen and get the feedback from our coaching client, the mastermind groups and things like that. It's just great to see it made real and to see people improve their businesses through these ideas.
Absolutely. I love the feedback. So the iTunes feedback and the emails that come through, the comments on various things we do, and emails through preneurmarketing.com. It's great to hear the feedback when people actually do take action on this sort of stuff. So please keep that feedback coming, because it's really, really fun.
Yep, I'll shorten that wrap up to, folks, if you want to get in touch with us, preneurmedia.tv is the place where all our podcasts live, and you can download them, listen to them, read the transcripts, leave us a comment, get all the show notes and everything on that site. Or if you have enjoyed what we've talked about, please leave us an iTunes rating and a comment. We'd love to get those as well. And at that, I'll see you all soon.
Ciao.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gosher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at preneurmedia.tv or drop them a line via PreneurCast at preneurgroup.com.